Our lungs are very cleverly designed organs. They get rid of carbon dioxide that we don't need and exchange it for oxygen that we definitely do. Sam Kirby and I are about to test our lung capacity to the limit. The challenge, to see how long we can swim underwater on one breath. After just one width, my lungs are already at bursting point. Well, we're air-breathing animals, so unlike fish, we can't get oxygen out of water. And so we rely, when we're underwater, on the last gasp of air we took to keep us alive. But Sam's still going strong. After all, she's a member of the British free dive team. Sam, you've just done 3 widths underwater to my 1, and that was holding your breath for longer than a minute. So, what's the longest you can hold your breath underwater?
About 5 minutes, that's without moving.
How have you trained yourself to be able to do that?
Before we set off, we use a technique which is really slow breathing, in and out as slow as you can. Before you go down, the last thing you're going to do is take in a really big, deep breath. You also need to train by building up your tolerance to carbon dioxide, so that when most people would start thinking, oh, I want to come up, a freediver will know how much longer they can stay down or how much further they can swim.
Sam has trained her body to make the most of just one breath. She's very mindful about the way she uses her lungs, but for most of us, we take our next breath without ever having to think about it. I live in Bristol, where I teach anatomy at the university. I wonder what my fellow citizens know about their lungs.
Liver or kidney?
Lungs. Ah, lungs, is it?
What, how many breaths in a whole day? Over 1,000. Can I get them in there? 2,000.
Probably here is where they start.
Well, they're not far wrong. This is where the windpipe or trachea branches, and as you can see on Trevor, the lungs extend right up into the neck area. You're right there, Trev.
Fine, yeah.
The lungs wrap around the heart and take up most of the room in your chest. Each lung is subdivided into lobes, 2 on the left and 3 on the right. I'm making your lungs a bit pinker, Trev, because you live in the countryside. So there we have it. Healthy-looking pair of lungs. Unfortunately, most of us won't have clean pink lungs like Trevor's because we live in cities where the pollution takes its toll. 34-year-old Lisa Garrity has been living in London for 6 years.
I grew up in Iowa, and that's in the US. My little joke about it is that it stands for idiots out wandering around. The first time I had a cigarette, I was about 14 or 15 years old, and I've been smoking for 15 years. And I definitely don't want to be smoking once I'm 35.
Lisa needs help to quit, so I'm going to try to give her a whole new appreciation of her lungs. So what exactly do they do? These are actually pig's lungs.
Are they the same size as what my lungs would be?
They're pretty similar. They might actually be a bit bigger. What we can do is actually inflate them. If you push that red button just there, they should blow up.
Oh my God!
Still. Yeah, keep it pressed in, keep it pressed in. There they go.
Oh my...
Okay, stop now, stop there. When we breathe in, the air travels down the trachea, then off into each lung. From there, it goes down smaller and smaller tubes, like the branches and twigs on a tree. Keeping these tubes clear is crucial. If they get blocked, we become susceptible to infection and can starve our bodies of oxygen. And then because they're elastic, they want to deflate. Surprisingly, perhaps, it's our body's need to breathe out carbon dioxide which drives our lung function. Breathing in oxygen is the other side of the equation. Inside the lungs, the oxygen passes into the bloodstream, where it's carried off to all the cells of our body. Without oxygen, every life-sustaining process would shut down. So much for the theory. Time for Lisa to get hands-on, starting with the large airway that branches off into each lung, the bronchus. And the bronchus has got cartilage in its walls. Have a feel of that. You should be able to feel the cartilage there, the gristle. Yeah.
It's like your ears.
It is. It's just like it's the same sort of cartilage, absolutely. And the reason there's cartilage in the airway is to hold it open and to stop it collapsing down. You can also see another tube there. Can you see that? That's an artery. So that artery is bringing blood away from the heart into the lung, and in fact that artery is carrying deoxygenated blood into the lung, ready to pick up oxygen, and then the oxygenated blood comes back through veins, which are a bit difficult to see because they're so thin-walled. I've talked Lisa through the basics, but she already knows the very first thing she should do for her lungs.
Stop smoking. Yeah.
Ironically, Lisa is quite a fitness fanatic, and her chosen sport is trapeze.
I do think it affects my health. I notice it at trapeze especially. See, you don't even seem out of breath.
Because of Lisa's smoking, her body is getting less oxygen than normal, some 15% less than a non-smoker. The actual place where our body gets rid of carbon dioxide and absorbs oxygen is at the end of the tiniest tubes in the lung, in microscopic air sacs, or alveoli. Oxygen's coming down there, and that oxygen is going to cross that thin membrane into the blood. That's the anatomy, but what happens when the 300 million alveoli have to face the hazards of the real world? So our lungs are made of these tiny little bubbles of air, and if you were to open them all up and spread them out, that would make a surface area of 80 square metres. Which is great, as long as you can get the air in and out of the air cells. But for people like me who have asthma, that can be a bit of a problem. It's strange to think what a huge surface area there is inside our lungs for air to come into contact with. But of course, it's not just the air, it's anything that's in it. So that might be particles of soot, or it might be chemicals. And if you're allergic to things, it might be allergens like pollen. Now, I'm safe in that respect. My allergens lurk inside the house. 1 in 12 adults in the UK has asthma, and even more children. And I have it too. What my lungs are going to react to, I think, because they usually do, is little particles in the dust, and in fact it's not actually the dust itself, it's horrible little animals that live in it called dust mites, and I'm allergic to them. I'm in no doubt that asthma reduces my lung capacity, but I want to know by how much. I'm really starting to feel it now. It's sort of quite a struggle to get air in, and particularly to breathe out as well. It's like, well, my bronchioles have narrowed down. It's like trying to get the same amount of traffic, in other words air, through on a motorway where one of the lanes has been closed down. Talking is quite an effort as well. When I'm having an asthma attack, the tubes in my lungs constrict right down. It becomes really difficult to breathe air in and out, and I start wheezing. One of my university colleagues, who also works in A&E, is here to keep an eye on me. Before I started dusting, he took a reading of my lungs working normally, pretty average. Oh, right. Time for reading number 2. I need to do it quickly so I can take my inhaler.
Keep going and stop.
That's quite a big difference. About 20%. Modern inhalers work really fast, relaxing the constricted tubes so that I can breathe properly again. Oh, that's better. Whatever your allergy, it's a good idea to cut down your exposure to whatever sets it off. I'm allergic to dust mites, so what I could do is damp dust. I'm just very lucky at the end of the day that I'm not allergic to Bob. He's comatose. I'm trying to avoid things that harm my lungs, but a lot of people find it harder. Over the years, Lisa has tried various ways to stop smoking.
It's called Cigarettes Are Sublime. And then this is his second book, The Only Way to Stop Smoking Permanently, which actually makes me wonder if the first one is temporary.
But nothing has worked so far. So Lisa, how are you doing on the whole giving up smoking thing?
Not very well, actually.
How not very well?
Well, on Monday night, I smoked 40 cigarettes at the pub. 40? Yeah.
I'm taking Lisa to watch an operation, the sort of thing she could be facing if she carries on smoking. 56-year-old Christine Orton is facing urgent surgery to remove a tumour in her lung. She was diagnosed only a week ago.
Smoked 40 years. 20 cigarettes a day. Stupid, but I did. The worst part was having to come home and tell my husband and my children that I'd got cancer.
Christine's surgeon, Ian Morgan, operates on 3 patients a week with lung cancer. He's letting me scrub up, while Lisa watches on a monitor. First, Ian needs to check the extent of the tumour. He uses a camera to look inside the chest cavity.
Your ribs are really solid. Ooh, that was weird. Did you see that?
Here we are looking down into the lower part of the chest cavity. There's the lower lobe. And if I move it out of the way...
Oh, that must be the tumor. Oh. It's really bloody there.
So that's good news to start with, that the
yep.
tumour isn't attached to the outside of the chest wall.
Precisely.
Oh, look at all that grey.
So Ian, the surface of those lungs, they're sort of mottled and greyish blue.
Yes, the smoke particles get trapped in the lung and then carried to the local lymph nodes. So very heavy smokers will have a much blacker pigmentation. It is also true to say that people who live in heavy cities where there's a bit of pollution will also have a certain element of carbon staining of the lungs. Now, if I get you to put your hand in there, put your right hand in, that's it, and just feel along the top of the lung.
Oh, yeah.
You feel that big lump?
Yes.
That's the tumour.
Big hard lump, about the size of a tennis ball.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, that instrument just looks awful.
That's the upper lobe.
That must be the tumor, or is it the whole lung? I don't know. It just...
Okay, so we've now freed it up.
Yeah, that's the tumor.
So there we are. We cover that with a wet swab and we'll have a look at it afterwards.
While Christine is taken to intensive care, Lisa comes face to face with lung cancer. And this is a solid tumour which took up 1/3 of a lung.
There'll be a little bit of blood comes out of the lung. That's normal. That's just blood that's been trapped following the operation.
Oh my God.
It's really dense, isn't it? And it's black inside.
It is. It looks like an ashtray.
You can see the sort of carbon deposits in there, and it's pretty hard. I mean, you can have a prod of it and see what the consistency is like.
It's really hard.
So Ian, is it actually the particles that cause the cancer?
No, there are chemicals within cigarette smoke. There are many thousands of chemicals, and we know that many of them have the potential to cause cancer.
So Lisa, looking at this lung tumour, what's going through your mind?
Well, a couple of things. First, the size of it. So we've already felt how hard that is, and you're definitely not breathing, and I'm just thinking that's quite a lot of my chest if that was me. And that could easily be me in not too much time. So as horrible as this is to look at actual cancer, that's what's going to be in my head every time I think about a cigarette. There's no way I'm putting one in my mouth again.
It's amazing to see it, isn't it?
It is.
Though 1 million people have given up cigarettes in the last 8 years, I'm surprised to find that 1 in 4 adults still smokes. Lisa, though, is really serious about giving up now and has been getting some tips from the NHS website.
Last night, I bought these sparkly straws from Tesco, and I've cut them up. And so each one is about the size of a cigarette, and the idea is you're smoking fresh air. So we'll see if that is something I go with. I think it's a good idea, but I feel like a total dork.
So we all know what we shouldn't do, but is there anything positive we can do? I've been told there's a group of people who know exactly how to get the most out of their lungs.
2, 3, 4. What shall we do with a drunken sailor? What shall we do with a drunken sailor? What shall we do with a drunken sailor?
This is the anvil chorus of barbershop singers, and the appropriately named Rob Barber is the coach.
Singing exercises parts of the lungs that you wouldn't normally exercise. You breathe a lot more deeply, especially if you sing correctly. Normally, when we breathe, we just use probably 20% of our lung capacity. The singer would use the majority of his lungs, so the whole thing from here right down to there. When we breathe, we like to breathe down into the bottom of the lungs, and that encourages the support of the diaphragm from underneath. As and when we do that, the sound is more supported, and this instrument, the vocal instrument, is well supported and won't fail.
So I say thank you for the music, for giving it to me. It's all for me.
I'm not much of a sportsman, so about the only kind of physical exercise I do get really is singing.
One of the things that made me do was stop smoking, because I actually struggled with some of the long passages.
I mean, they do say anyone who's singing, the time you spend singing doesn't count against the rest of your life. So if you could sing all the time, you'd live forever. And that's true, and we're going to prove that. Well, I'm going to prove it.
And don't die young.
Exercising our lungs by singing is something that a lot of us only do in the shower. But giving the lungs a workout by taking any aerobic exercise is good for them. I don't much like going to the gym, so I cycle to work most days. Physical exercise actually increases the capacity of the lungs, and it doesn't seem to matter what sort of exercise you do, so the key to it is to find something you enjoy, and then you'll want to do lots of it. And I love cycling. But could my choice of exercise be doing me more harm than good? My routine involves cycling 8 miles to and from work every day, often in heavy traffic. I sometimes wonder whether the pollution is bad for me. Dr. Anthony Steed has built a portable pollution monitor, which will measure how much carbon monoxide I'm being exposed to on my way to work. It should take me about 40 minutes, I think, down into the middle of Bristol and back again, so I'll see you then.
Okay.
Carbon monoxide can limit the amount of oxygen my blood can carry. But I'm also worried about the dangerous ultrafine particles in exhaust fumes. Some people wear masks. They do cut out the big stuff, but they don't block the ultrafine particles, so the jury is still out on just how effective they are. The pollution monitor in my backpack was hooked up to a GPS system, so rather cleverly, the computer knows exactly where I've been.
Right, well, let's see. This is where we started, outside in the countryside of almost. It's quite low levels, that's what the blue means. Coming into the centre, still quite low levels here, around the square, but then you can see when we hit the city centre, we're getting a very high level just on this bit of the street here. We'll be able to see. You're coming down Queen's Road?
Yes, so I'm coming down Queen's Road in this direction. I was behind a lorry just there, where it goes pink, belching lots of fumes at that point.
Yes, it's not a particularly high level, it's a high level on this route, but expect to see the pollution go up when you're following traffic or stuck whilst you're behind something. Now, the interesting thing is when you go back up the same route, and we can see here if we zoom in Again, as we come back up, you're going slower, of course, 'cause it's uphill,
Yeah.
but it's not as polluted. So what that tells us overall, we could expect that if you're in a city centre, there's really not much to worry about. But if you can stay away from the big juggernauts, that would be sensible.
That's actually really quite reassuring, because it means that even right down in the middle of Bristol, the carbon monoxide levels aren't too high. I mean, I'm going to carry on this route then, it doesn't look too bad. But tomorrow, I'm not going to cycle up behind lorries. It's becoming clear what I need to do to keep my lungs in good shape, avoiding allergens and pollutants, but still keeping physically fit. You could even try singing. But what else could you do? This is an oxygen bar, the latest fad at parties. A hit from one of these will give you more than double the amount of oxygen that you normally breathe in. Normal air carries 21% oxygen, and that's plenty. It's what our bodies are designed to breathe. Breathing lavender-flavoured oxygen here, it's a bit strange actually. Even if you're not hooked up to an oxygen bar though, with every breath in you're taking oxygen into your lungs and then it passes into blood and goes off on haemoglobin to all the tissues of your body. Could I try the fruity one on the end? Thank you. Now, the cells of our body have a bit of a love-hate relationship going on with oxygen because they need it to burn fuel and make energy. But as they're making that energy, they're also producing dangerous oxygen species. And these free radicals can be very damaging to our cells. But we do have a way of neutralising them. This is a human cell. There's the nucleus, and that's where the DNA is. But there are also these little packages that are extremely important to the cell, which are actually its power stations. They're called mitochondria. They are taking in the oxygen and using it to burn fuel that you're getting from your food to make energy for the cell. So they literally are tiny little power stations. Unfortunately, at the same time as doing that, they're also producing dangerous versions of oxygen called free radicals. And these free radicals are knocking into anything inside the cell, proteins, even DNA. Free radicals cause damage inside all our cells, damage which is at the root of many diseases, including cancer, and also part of the ageing process. So what can you do to protect yourself? Well, you don't need any expensive potions or pills. The answer lies in what you eat. What you need to mop up free radicals are nature's crack troops, antioxidants. And I've challenged Chef Humberto Benvenuto to make me a meal rich in antioxidants.
Hi, welcome.
Hello, how are you doing?
In the kitchen.
Antioxidants are naturally occurring compounds and include vitamins A, C and E, sometimes referred to as ACE.
So we're going to chop everything nice and small in cubes.
Yeah, it is incredibly colourful. I mean, some of these antioxidants are actually the pigments. Found in every kind of fruit, vegetable and nuts, they're what our bodies use to neutralise free radicals. The more fruit and veg you eat, the more help your organs are going to get. Some of the richest sources are pecan nuts, red kidney beans, cranberries, prunes and apples. It's been 3 weeks since I last saw Lisa, and I've invited her to join me for this healthy feast.
We're just going to put on here and sit them right down there.
Oh,
So
fantastic.
there.
Lisa, here we go. This is the antioxidants-rich meal I've been promising you.
Wow, it looks fantastic.
And we've got some vegetables as well, so there we go.
Those look nice.
Dig in.
Cool.
I'm going to have to remember this recipe because this looks absolutely fantastic. Garçon.
So, yes.
Yes. Cheers.
Okay, well done.
Cheers, thank you.
Great to have you all here.
So, Lisa, have you actually given up smoking?
I have.
Have you?
Yep. It'll be 3 weeks tomorrow.
Did you give up after seeing Christine's operation then?
Yes. After her operation, all I could visualize with a cigarette is the idea that it's a tube connected directly to that cancer that she had. So it's been a really sort of good visual to use to deter myself every time I think I want one. All I have to do is think of that cancer.
Yeah.
And I don't want it anymore.
So it's been a really personal experience, obviously, but it has helped.
Yeah, it really personalised it for me, yeah. I think I've had a little mortality check in this whole thing.
And it's been 3 weeks since Christine's operation. It's an anxious moment as she waits to see Ian Morgan for her results.
Hello.
Hello, how are you?
I'm all right, thank
Nice to
you.
see you again.
And you?
Come and have a seat.
Thank you. Is that me?
It is, yes.
Right.
How are you feeling?
Not bad at all.
Well, we've got the results back of the bit we took out. Was a lung cancer, but we've got rid of it all.
Oh, fantastic.
It's all gone.
Fantastic. Okay. That's brilliant.
This is what's left of your right lung, and it's inflated to fill the space very nicely.
Mm-hmm.
That's your left lung, looks completely normal.
Good.
So that's an excellent result. The chances of cure are very high with this type of cancer, but it's never 100% guarantee.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Thanks for everything.
That's all right.
As with much cancer surgery, Christine will still have to undergo some chemotherapy.
I'll never smoke again. Never ever smoke again. No, I'll never touch another cigarette as long as I live. It's brought me this, yeah. Mm-hmm.
For me, the best thing about meeting Lisa and Christine and Ian Morgan has been that we've taken anatomy out of the lab and into the real world and brought it alive. And we've discovered an awful lot about how to keep the lungs healthy as well. So I do hope that Lisa stays off the cigarettes. As for me, I'm going to carry on cycling and make sure I don't sit behind buses. I'm going to minimise my exposure to allergens and any other chemical pollutants and make sure that I eat a nice healthy diet. There's one thing I'm not going to try, and that's singing. Believe me, you wouldn't like it. Next time, we'll be finding out what makes the heart tick.
Up we go. Oh my God!
I'll find out just what alcohol does to my own arteries. And we'll meet the man who's putting his heart under a lot of stress.